Welcome back to PR After Hours. I'm your host, Alex Greenwood, bringing you your weekly cocktail of PR and marketing tips that will help you and your business. Stick around, we'll get started right after these messages. Hello, listeners. It's me, Alex, from PR After Hours. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. And I wanted to talk to you just for a moment about the way I get this show right into your earbuds every week. It's because I use Anchor FM. Now, I've told you previously that I've been podcasting since 2006, back when we used stone knives and bear skins and a couple of Dixie cups and string. Anchor FM has really streamlined this and made it simpler for people who don't know the first thing about setting up a podcast or don't have, time to learn all the pro tools and stuff, because it's all right here. First thing it's important to know is it's free. There are certain tools that will allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. That's huge. Distribution is a big pain in the butt, to be honest with you, so it's really great Anchor FM can do that for you, and you're not paying hosting fees. That adds up every month. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place, so download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started, and be sure to join me in the virtual cocktail lounge on PR After Hours.
This is Holly Jackson, host of Inspiration Contagion podcast. You're in the virtual lounge with Alex Greenwood of PR After Hours.
Okay, if you're like me, and probably a lot of people, what do I mean probably? A lot of people, you're like, what is this whole cryptocurrency thing? What is this thing? I mean, seriously? What, it's money on a computer, you mine it with programs? What? Come on now. That can't be real, right? Well, think again. As of this recording, Coinbase just went through the roof on their initial kind of quasi-public offering, and that is basically a bank where you can buy all kinds of crypto and Ethereum and all that kind of stuff. And I probably said something wrong just now, and that's why I'm really glad that Nick Prouten's here. Nick is an expert in this area, and I'm going to let him tell a little bit about himself and then tell us why crypto is probably here to stay, and it may not be as scary as a lot of people think. Nick Prouten, welcome to the Virtual Lounge.
Alex, first and foremost, let me say thank you so much for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure to get to talk with people like you and your audience about what we're doing in the cryptocurrency space and demystifying a lot of the noise that you hear around cryptocurrencies. And for the record, you're pretty much spot on with your definition of what's going on with the Coinbase IPO right now. It's not quite a bank yet. However, competitors such as Kraken, which you may have heard of as well, are now starting to seek that licensing that formalizes them as banks. So these big exchanges are kind of moving in that direction of becoming banks, but we can unpack that over time.
Okay, well, if you don't mind, let's just talk to all of us like we really don't have any real understanding of what crypto is. If you could just, encapsulate it in a couple of minutes, tell us what it is.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I at the risk of getting a little long-winded on this, I'll start at the very beginning. So first thing, it's important to distinguish what a cryptocurrency is versus blockchain technology is. Cryptocurrencies are financial instruments and tools that live on blockchain technology, right? So you could have a stock that is technically a cryptocurrency. You could have a bond, an ETF that is a cryptocurrency. You can have and pretty much all financial instruments live on a blockchain and be classified as a catch-all phrase, a cryptocurrency. Now, what is blockchain technology then? Blockchain technology is essentially is a computer algorithm that uses consensus between a network of computers, which is a fancy way of saying basically all these computers reach a virtual handshake to transfer value from point A to point B. And how does this apply, and what metaphors can I use to help make this make sense? Well, when you go to your local grocery store to make a purchase today, and you pull your Visa card out, tap spend, and away you go, what is really taking place there is your bank is connecting to another party's bank through the debit technology, so the Interact technology, or through a Visa MasterCard rails in most circumstances. And these banks and the Visa technology act as quote unquote trusted third parties to conduct the transfer of that value. And what blockchain basically says is that we don't need an institution or a bank to perform these transactions anymore. We have these autonomous computer system, this network of computers that can process these transactions and deliver that money directly from individual A to individual B. And there's no need for these middlemen to get involved and start taking cuts, right? So conceptually, that is how a blockchain works. And what happens once the transaction is finalized is that information gets stored in blocks, almost like a Lego structure that you can't take apart, right? So it only stacks upwards, it only goes forwards, and you can't repeal that because of how the blockchain is distributed and shared. That information is shared across a network of computers. And so this is when people are talking about decentralization, what they're really talking about is the network of computers that are all hooked up to this system and responsible for reaching consensus. And in order to manipulate that, in order to make a change in that, you would require at minimum 51% of those computers to disrupt it, making it, for context, in a blockchain like Bitcoin, you have tens of thousands of computers across the world, and you would need access to all of them simultaneously to create that kind of a compromisation. So it makes money a lot more secure and immutable, as you've probably heard as a buzzword being thrown out there. But it also creates better accountability with money, because blockchains are what we like to call pseudo-anonymous, meaning that all the wallet addresses are publicly available out there, but you don't necessarily know who owns those wallets. You just see a cryptographic identification of this wallet. But for context, in the situation of something like a government, right, saying, oh no, we did not sell arms to this country, as long as the public is able to deduce that this is in fact the wallet of the US government, they could, or any government, it doesn't have to be the United States, they could say, well, actually, yes, you did send this transaction. So there is this immutability, you can't change it, right? There is this accountability, and then there is the removal of third parties acting as middlemen between two individuals who just want to send money back and forth, like it's a cash transaction. And in addition to that, blockchain says you don't need to store your money in a bank anymore, right? You can become your own bank. You don't need the bank to hold on to that for safekeeping and give you an IOU representation in your account. You can actually just hold this asset. You have the private keys. No one can manipulate it. And you can always have that certainty that that cash is yours and belongs to you. So again, kind of long-winded, but hopefully it's clear as mud now for you.
I think the question people are going to ask, and I think I'm grasping it better already, thank you, is that, okay, we get that there's all these, the blockchain, we understand that's all linked together, but where did the value come from? So let me just put it this way. Okay, basically we have more or less a gold-based economy. Is that, I mean, it's not the gold standard anymore, but is that it? Or is it just full faith and credit of the dollar, basically, that makes the world go round right now?
Yeah, for sure. So, as to why people believe in Bitcoin, there's a lot of people who believe in this type of trustless technology, and the fact that supplies are, in most circumstances, limited. They're finite, and they're not subject to the inflation that government-backed currencies are. And in developed nations like the United States and Canada, where I live, we tend to have a sense of security, like hyperinflation can never happen to us. But the reality is, it has happened in developed nations before, and places all over the world that were formerly stable are experiencing hyperinflation with their currency, because a small body of people control the total supply that gets circulated into the market. And so what used to cost us $1 now costs us $2, right? And this inflation actually causes the value of your money to go down. So along comes Bitcoin, and it says, well, this is a system in which nobody can ever produce more of this, and therefore it's scarce. And because of that, in addition to all the other benefits of blockchain that we've talked about, people have gotten excited about this concept of a universal currency that no central government can really control or co-opt or, manipulate. And that really is why people have chosen to put a lot of faith and enthusiasm into Bitcoin. That being said, it's well known that the cryptocurrency space is largely very speculative, meaning that if public face change, if public sentiment changes and Elon Musk farts and pulls out of Bitcoin, makes a tweet and what have you, yeah, sure, the market will be impacted by that, which is why there was so much volatility in that 2017 boom that we saw a few years back. But what is happening now is that the technological advances of blockchain are now beginning to get integrated into traditional banking infrastructure and traditional systems. The biggest players out there like Visa, MasterCard, and so on and so forth. And so now consumers are feeling more comfortable about going into the blockchain ecosystem and starting to use this technology and acquire these assets themselves. And what's going to happen over time is that eventually the market will get so big, it'll be just about as big as, traditional financials markets. And when a player like Elon Musk all of a sudden pulls a couple $1 billion out of the market, it won't impact the market as much anymore because there will be such a surplus of people already in this market. So I'm kind of getting a little off topic, so I'll put the ball back in your court here, but this is largely why people have where the value comes from right now with cryptocurrencies. Usually it's a speculative asset. Sometimes there are really great applications of cryptocurrencies. So some projects like Ethereum, for example, that's the number 2 coin out there, and people have heard about this. These projects largely make blockchains accessible to other projects out there in the world. A company says, oh, we want to create a cryptocurrency, and Ethereum says, well, you can treat the Ethereum blockchain basically like an operating system, like a Windows or a Mac computer operating system, and you can put your project on the Ethereum blockchain and have a little token that's your project name coin, and away you go, and that'll be on a run on the Ethereum blockchain as an ERC20 token. So these are your EOSs, your Trons of the world, and these serve a very different function, right? And so that fact that they operate like an operating system is what gives these types of tokens value, right? It's still speculative, but there is a different use case than Bitcoin, which is speculated as valuable because of it can be used as money or as a store of value. Then you have assets that are collateralized, which is what we do at LODE, right? This is we produce digital gold and silver. So we take real physical hard assets and we back our currencies with these hard assets, much like the gold standard that the United States used to have up until 1971, although every single one of our coins is 100% backed versus partially backed. These assets, these stable coins, and there are lots of them out there. Some are diamonds, some are backed by oil. Governments are now doing dollar and yuan and low government currency backed tokens. These are designed to be used for trading commerce, the same way you would use your regular cash or as commodities, right? So they serve a more practical purpose because something like Bitcoin, as we were talking about just before starting the show, can go up and fluctuate so wildly that it doesn't make a lot of sense as a merchant, as a business owner to price your goods and wares in Bitcoin, because your margins could collapse or explode in a fraction of a second, right? And how are you supposed to price something that moves so quickly like that? Versus, putting it in something like a gold currency or a USD currency where it's moderately stable compared. So this is just a very broad perspective of the different kinds of cryptocurrencies that are out there and the different value that each of these bring to the table.
Yeah, you're talking about as a merchant. I just recall years ago for fun the guy who bought pizzas with Bitcoin. Do you remember that? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh
man, that was a classic story.
Yeah, let me tell you. So there have been 2 times in my life when I've missed the boat, and I can tell you both of them. One was about 25 years ago when somebody said, "Have you heard of this Google thing? You should invest in it." And I'm like, it's a silly name. Why would I do that? Okay, there's that. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, you're talking about the bubble that started, or the volatility, Bitcoin. But I got to be honest, Bitcoin, I don't know if it was the people who talked to me about it or the people I kept seeing online talking about it, just seemed so, and I don't mean like bad people or anything.
Immature? Is that the word?
Ding, 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 ding. I was like, I'm not putting thousands of dollars of my money into something by this guy who, he looked like a clown. And it's so here I am now, basically only available to afford fractions of Bitcoin now, right? But and to invest actually in things like Coinbase, because I'm now investing in, as an investor, I'm investing in the things that support Bitcoin and help people trade it. But I'm priced out of getting actual Bitcoin anymore, I'm pretty sure, because it's just worth so much damn money. So
well, the great news is when compared to something like stocks, the fractional ownership is still great. Like I don't hold the full Bitcoin myself either, but I'm able to slowly but surely acquire more Bitcoin. But I would argue that you haven't missed the boat. If you look at a traditional adoption cycle, where I would argue we are at is at what we would call the early majority. And for those of you who don't know what this cycle looks like, generally when new technology comes into circulation, there are the key innovators. So this is people who invented the technology in a really small core group of believers. You have your early adopters, right? So these early adopters would be the talking heads that seem really immature, and all the people in the channels going Lambos on the moon and all that stuff. That honestly, as somebody who's worked in this industry, it's been and I'm not here to salt anybody's wealth generation, but
sure.
You're trying to come off and say this is a great advancement for financial technology, and then you have these people who kind of just took a bet and got lucky because their friends told them to buy into it, but the technology itself did have real practical value. A lot of those people don't even still to this day really understand how a blockchain works, but they just know they got filthy rich off of it. And I know that because I've gone to a lot of conferences and talked to those people. So combating that has been one of the biggest challenges in the industry. But where we're at now in the adoption cycle is what we call the early majority. So as a metaphor, we're at the point right now when Facebook had, left Mark Zuckerberg and his core group of friends. It's gone past just being a hot or not in college app on computers. Now it's kind of competing for MySpace, market share, and most people kind of know what a Facebook is, but they may or may not have one yet. It's still cool to teenagers, but your grandma and your aunt don't know why the hell they would go on it or what the heck a Facebook is, right? That's where we're at. And you'll know that we're kind of at the top of the market or into the late majority when grandma owns Bitcoin, or she's like, or no, doesn't just own Bitcoin. She is like, of course I own Bitcoin. It's part of my pension fund, right? When she gets to that, when the world gets to that point, that is when you will know we have truly reached the zenith of adoption. So I would argue there's a lot of room for growth yet, and that if you don't have a digital portfolio, you should definitely consider it.
Well, that leads me to Lode then. You got my attention big time. I remember when your folks recouched about the show about collateralization of this, because that's another thing. This guy, here I am, late middle-aged guy. This is what started to perk me up, is because I was just nervous as hell about it, because I always, this is really simplistic. I used to just say, well, okay, without electricity though, you don't have any of these computers. What happens if the grid goes down? Which is really ridiculous, because if the grid goes down forever, well, society's gone. The last thing I need to worry about is
problem.
There's a bigger problem. So tell me about Lode and how that would be a benefit to folks. I already like just the basic I hear about it, because it is collateralized, right?
Yeah. So Lode is the overarching brand moniker for a project that is largely dedicated to creating digital gold and silver. And our currencies are designed for trading commerce, as well as just buying and holding like your regular gold and silver out there in the world. And it provides an excellent way for people to tiptoe into their market, into the cryptocurrency market, if they want to be more of a cautious investor. But there's lots of benefits beyond just the speculative side of having a digital currency that is backed by gold and silver. Gold and silver has been used as a monetary vehicle for most of the world's history. We're talking like 7-9 large major empires all used gold and silver, and up until 1971, the United States and most currencies in the world had some kind of silver gold backing behind it. I won't get into the politics of why they moved away from that, but once they did, what we saw is that dollars started devaluating at an incredible rate, where your money, the US dollar has lost 90% of its purchasing power over 100 years, and Canada's not far off either, right? That's tremendous devaluation. And rather than holding your wealth in a bank account and saying, hey, I hope tomorrow this 20K is worth as much as it was yesterday, it's better to store it into an asset that has been proven to hold and retain its value over time, like gold, like silver, and then cash out to something like the US dollar or your Canadian dollar as you need to. There's a compelling use case for this, especially in developing nations, right? Where they have hyperinflationary currencies, and they need a universal standard that is not backed by a nation's debt or strength, right? It doesn't, the political sway of having your base currency in a foreign nation be the US dollar, or more recently the Chinese yuan, as they're pressing into more and more territory. There are political implications of that. But if you have a decentralized, autonomous, gold-backed currency, it removes a lot of that political fatigue that can come alongside with it. So it's not just a speculation tool in the Western world as we might use it. There's a lot of practical application for developing nations as well. But at the end of the day, it's still just gold and silver on a new vehicle. What we've been able to do is take all the benefits of blockchain and marry a standard and a commodity that people already understand very well, and put the two together, right? And put the two together so that, and there are benefits to this, even if you are just a speculator. So do you hold any gold and silver yourself?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So you probably went to a bullion dealer, and you probably, the spot price of gold is probably not what you paid. You probably paid a premium on top of that.
Right. And although I did okay on silver, because everybody started freaking out about silver during the pandemic, although I think that's probably not going to hold.
Well, we'll see. There's a lot of enthusiasm for it, and there's a shortage right now in the market of silver supply. But again, that's a bit of a different topic. My point is that when you go buy from a physical bullion dealer, of course, you're going to pay a premium on top of that. And that premium, right, if you're buying something like a 1 ounce coin, can run as high as 50% of the spot price. That's huge, right?
Yeah.
And on the other side, when you go to sell to a bullion dealer, if you actually want to liquidate your silver, they're going to give you a couple percentage points under what you bought it for, and in some circumstances even under spot price, right? So again, you're losing money when you buy, and you lose money when you sell. With a digital system like this, you're able to acquire at essentially what the market is willing to trade it at, which is most arguably the spot price, if not a little higher, and then liquidate at that same price so you're making much better margins on this gold and silver. And what's nice is that every single one of our tokens, every single one of our coins is our AGX, our silver coin, is backed by 1 gram of vaulted, audited, and insured silver per coin, and our AUX, our digital gold, is backed by 1 gram of vaulted, audited, and insured gold milligram. And these assets are redeemable, right? So there's a big belief in the gold silver bug market, where if you can't hold it, you don't own it. But that being said, this is the 21st century. Not everybody has room in their house or their backyard to go bury a flight of gold, some gold bullion. And lots of people already use vaulting services. So why not take advantage of a digital system that has been set up for your benefit by people like you, and acquire these digital assets. And if you really, really want to hold the physical asset yourself, you can pull them out and redeem them for that physical asset when you want to take possession. Right? So I think I've made a compelling use case across the board as to why digital gold and silver are a great idea, and why we've brought these things to the forefront as speculative and monetary vehicles. I'll toss the ball back over to you there, Alex, and we can pick it up from there. I tend to just dump tons of information.
It's great. So is the LODE project is it purely gold and silver then? I mean, the Motherlode, I get it, but is it purely in precious metals, or are there other things?
Yeah. So our big mission is to restore silver and gold to the monetary system as monetary vehicles, but we do have a virtual equity asset as well. We do have our LODE token, hence where the name comes from, and this is classified as a bond. legally, and you can get access to it through our platform. And what this does is essentially, we call it putting your idle silver and gold to work, right? So your metal right now is sitting there collecting dust in a sock drawer and maybe appreciating value, but it doesn't generate any interest like a stock might or something like that.
Right.
So
No
what you
dividends,
can what you can do is purchase this bond with your precious metals, or you can buy from a bullion dealer, and we'll emit it into one of our 8 vaults around the world. And from there, you'll be issued this bond, and this bond pays a dividend in gold and silver, right? Which is pretty cool. So now you're earning interest on your silver from the sale of the currencies that we're putting into circulation. So the more the volume and the sales go up, the higher your dividend and your yield will be. So I think that's a pretty compelling case for helping build what we like to think of as the money of the future out there. So we do produce these kinds of assets as well. And as we grow as a project, we may create more either derivative or not necessarily derivative, but securities as well. But at our heart, at our core, we're really just about the digital gold and silver first and foremost. And what we've been doing now that we've produced these digital assets is producing mobile wallet technology that gives you all the benefits of your traditional banking apps, but with the added benefit of also being able to leverage these digital assets and tiptoe your way into Bitcoin, into Ethereum, and into the cryptocurrency market as well.
A lot of food for thought here. There is a lot here, but it's good. You've given us a whole buffet here, Nick. So let's break it down in our last couple of minutes here. What I'm hearing is what I want, and it's what I wanted to hear you say. I wanted you to knock down a lot of objections that people like me have about I think it's safe to say I believe crypto is here to stay. That's obvious. And again, I'm glad to know I can still get in on something, because what little I've done, the fractional shares I've purchased have done very well. And again, it's just like anything else, right? It could go up, it could go down. But the thing I'm attracted to about crypto is there's a finite amount. It's I don't know. Can you say inflation proof? But it's certainly much more inflation resistant than the dollar. If they want to get in on Lode, though, let's talk about this. One last question or two about Lode real quick here. If people are nervous, they're going, yeah, but okay, you're not a bank, obviously, you're something else. If they're nervous about that, what do you say to them? Or do you say the same thing people would say about crypto in general? Well, it's not a bank, obviously, it's something else. How do you assuage fears or concerns about going to put something in Lode?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, one major difference between us and a lot of other projects out there in the market is we are regulated. We, in the European region, are regulated under the BaFin, which is a very big, if not arguably the biggest financial regulator in Europe. We are a tied agent of a MiFID II bank known as CM Equities, and these are the same guys that are working with some of the biggest exchanges in the world, FTX, Binance. So we are in league with the same big dogs that are considered the most legitimate players in the space. In the United States, we use similar broker dealers that have the licensing necessary to bring this to people in a compliant and safe manner, to keep us accountable, right, to the promises that we make to people. Ultimately, though, at the end of the day, investing is about risk taking, right? It is about risk taking, and I can never totally assuade that from somebody. That's going to be different for every individual. But I will say that we've gone to great lengths and spent a great amount of time working hand in hand with regulators to bring as much confidence to consumers as we possibly can. So you don't just have to take us on our word. You have the word of these regulated institutions behind it.
Where do we go to get more information?
That's a great question. You can always find us on Lode.one if you're interested in learning about the Lode token, reading some project papers. If you're more of an advanced investor and you're really about the nitty gritty details, that's going to be your best place. So that's LODE.one. If you just want to access our mobile wallet today, fool around with it, see how it feels, start acquiring some digital gold and silver, you can head over to lodepay.com and you'll have the links right on the website. But you can also find us in your local app stores on iOS and Android under Lode Pay Mobile. And that's LODE Pay, PAY mobile. Additionally, if you want to learn more about kind of what just Lode is up to on the day-to-day, if you're interested in seeing me in the interviewer chair versus the interviewee chair, you can find me on Lode Pay Media, where I get to talk to a lot of really cool personalities from various fields of the financial sector. Additionally, if you want to yell at me on Twitter of all the minor things I might have gotten slightly wrong today, you can always find me on Twitter as well at Nicholas Prouten. But my biggest recommendation for those of you who are just getting started is to hop into our Telegram channel. And there you're going to find a group of roughly 1,000 people who are really, really pumped about what we're doing and are happy to share the knowledge. But for perspective, there's well more than 1,000 people involved in this project, or that have invested in this project. Our community is presently getting close to 8,000 and growing daily, and we're active in over 133 different countries. So this isn't a small operation, as you can probably gather from that. But we are so pumped about talking to people and getting people enthused about this space, and we want you to come.
Gotta admit, you're obviously an able spokesman, but you're also the chief operating officer. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was a recent promotion, and I'm very grateful to be acknowledged for that. If the Lode team's listening, it's an absolute pleasure working with you guys, and it is a privilege to be given this. As you were saying before, a lot of the times you feel like you're riding the coattails of these kinds of things, but I really do feel grateful to have the opportunity to be on the forefront of something that I think is going to change the world. So.
Yeah, I am very, just in general, listeners, very encouraged. I'm not reckless by any means, but I just find that when you have that's the thing I do love about even just about fractional stock purchases these days. You can get on Stash, or you can get on, there's so many different ones, and you can just kind of noodle around. It's a great way to learn without fearing losing your shirt. I kind of like the idea, if I heard you correctly, Nick, that I could probably get on Lode and just play around a little bit there, and just get my sea legs. It's not like it's a high pressure thing to put $10,000 in there right away, right?
Exactly. No, you can buy any denomination that you like, and that's one of the advantages of cryptocurrency versus traditional stocks and bonds, is that if you only have $10, sure, put in $10, right? Even if a Bitcoin or AGX, let's say AUX goes to the moon, gold skyrockets, and now they're expensive, you can still fractionally own a little bit of it and accumulate it at a rate that works for you at a budget that you can afford and not have to worry about missing the train, right? So that's one of the huge advantages.
Nicholas Prouten, the Lode team, thank you so much. I learned a lot. I have many more questions, but I'm going to go to Lode.one to find out if I can find out there. Thanks so much for joining us here in the virtual lounge. If you want to tip us, Nick, here at the lounge, you can use a Bitcoin. I'm perfectly fine with it. I'll find a way to figure it out.
Absolutely. And if I can just have one quick closing statement here, sure. I do think we are living through the biggest wealth generation event of our lifetimes. This is lifting so many people into prosperity. And part of my goal, my personal mission, is to bring as many people along for this ride as possible. So start thinking about a digital strategy, come and say hi to us, and let's ride this train together, guys, and take care. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you know what that means? Looks like it's last call here at your virtual lounge for PR news, views, and interviews. Don't forget, you can ask me a question anytime. You can do it through our Twitter account, which is @HoursPR, or even better, you can send me a message vocally. I would love to hear your voice, and I'll answer it on the show. There's a link in the show notes. All you have to do is sign up through Anchor FM. It's free, doesn't take long. And you record your message, I get the message, I will play your audio. Just give me your first name and the city you live in, and then I will answer the question to the best of my ability right here on the show. Don't forget to, if you're enjoying this podcast, you can support it and help increase the frequency and value of the show. Just consider being a sponsor for your brand or your agency, or just yourself because you're like, I like this show. Or just drop a few coins in the virtual tip jar. Either way, there's links in the show notes. Please check that out. All of that, of course, being in the show notes where you're listening right now, or at prafterhours.com. I see that they're turning up the lights. Last call is over, and I've got to clean up this virtual lounge. And until next time, I'm Alex Greenwood, and you've been listening to PR After Hours on Anchor FM.